Mrezi Mabwe, pattern now yawa clear. Mnangagwa's recurring secret flights east and the $1 billion deals being cut in the dark. Mrezi Mabwe, triple bombs in one. When we brought you the story about President Emerson Mnangagwa sneaking out of Zimbabwe without ceremony, pasina announcement and without accountability, the regime's handlers came out swinging. They called it speculation. They called it rumor. They called it opposition propaganda. And then the facts came out because the truth, as we always say on this channel, the truth refuses to stay buried. Right now, we are going deeper because what we are dealing with is not a one-off incident. It is not a presidential quirk. It is not an oversight by some protocol officer who forgot to arrange a send-off. Zvatinokupai pano pamuzinda wevanhu is exposing what is happening deliberately. Recurring pattern, a shadow travel operation that has been running quietly, costing Zimbabweans a fortune and signing away the nation's future in rooms most Zimbabweans will never know existed. Let's get into it, right? When we broke this story, we told you Mnangagwa slipped out of Zimbabwe quietly with no official airport send-off, no lineup of ministers, no motorcade, no transparency. The only evidence of his departure was the glaring absence of the president from the farewell dinner, Chief Justice Luke Malava, a man whose judicial rulings quite literally kept Mnangagwa in power. The critics tried to dismiss it, and then ZimLive published the receipts. According to ZimLive, President Mnangagwa left Zimbabwe on May 6 aboard an $18,000 per hour luxury Boeing 737 business jet, registration A6 DAS, owned by Royal Jet of the United Arab Emirates. Based on market rates for hiring the aircraft, the government spent over $500,000 on the trip. Let that number hit you. Over $500,000 US on a single trip in a country where public hospitals are crumbling. Nurses are migrating to the UK to escape joblessness, and ordinary Zimbabweans are grinding through economic hardship every single day. $500,000 on a luxury Boeing jet for a trip that the government initially refused to even confirm was happening. Mnangagwa returned to Zimbabwe on Thursday evening. In Russia, he attended the 80th Victory Day celebrations alongside other world leaders. In Belarus, his 5-day state visit led to several signed agreements, including a major deal aimed at revamping Zimbabwe's public healthcare system. So he was in Russia for Victory Day, then Belarus for 5 days of deal making. That is the official version, the version that only emerged after the trip was exposed, not before. Which brings us to the most important question: why the secrecy in the first place? This is not the first time the midnight flight pattern. Here is where this story gets truly alarming, because senior governing insiders, speaking on the condition of anonymity, have confirmed what many suspected. This is not a one-off departure. This is a pattern. Mnangagwa has made this exact journey to the east before, quietly, without ceremony, without parliament briefing, without public notice, slipping back into Zimbabwe before the diplomatic community or foreign intelligence agencies even registered his absence. The source quoted by investigative journalists put it plainly: it's just that time someone caught on it. Look at the documented history and it becomes impossible to deny. Mnangagwa visited Belarus in July 2015 as vice president and again in January 2019 as head of state. In 2019, his visit to Russia and Belarus was notably timed while deadly protests were erupting back home over a fuel price hike. Police and soldiers opened fire, killing at least 8 people and wounding over 30 others, while Mnangagwa was in Moscow meeting Putin. He was in Moscow cutting deals while Zimbabweans were being shot in the streets. In 2023, Lukashenko made a state visit to Zimbabwe. The countries signed agreements in industry, trade, agriculture, energy, transportation, and mining, and a ceremony was held to hand over Belarusian farm equipment as part of Zimbabwe's agricultural mechanization program. Then, May 2025, Mnangagwa flew to Minsk for a 4-day state visit where the parties signed a strategic cooperation roadmap for 2026 to 2030 and an agreement abolishing visas for holders of diplomatic and official passports. And now, in May 2026, he has done it again, this time with no announcement at all, days before the most explosive parliamentary vote in Zimbabwe's modern history. This is a pipeline, a recurring, secret east-facing pipeline, and Zimbabwe deserves to know what is being traded through it. Let's talk about the substance of these deals, because the public version, healthcare agreements and agricultural tractors, is only part of the story. During his 2025 Belarus visit, Mnangagwa openly offered Lukashenko the opportunity to explore Zimbabwe's vast mineral reserves, saying, "We see great benefits, including in the field of mineral extraction. Together we can develop a serious framework for investment, which will ensure productivity growth in this sector and let our economies prosper." Zimbabwe's minerals, offered to a sanctioned Belarusian strongman who is politically and economically isolated from the West, deeply dependent on Russia and actively building military industrial capacity under Moscow's wing. Opposition MPs from the Citizens Coalition for Change immediately pushed back, refusing to endorse a bilateral investment protection agreement, with CCC MP Edwin Mushoriwa warning that such arrangements can easily be manipulated and exploited by a few well-connected individuals. Now, here is the nuclear dimension that the mainstream media is too cautious to connect openly. Cabinet approved a memorandum of understanding between Zimbabwe and Russia's State Atomic Energy Corporation to facilitate higher-level cooperation in the use of nuclear energy. Zimbabwe has uranium deposits in the Zambezi River Valley. Russia and Belarus are building nuclear infrastructure, and Mnangagwa is flying to Moscow and Minsk in secret, offering mineral access and coming home with deals that never go to a full public referendum. You do the arithmetic. Right, who is Scott Sakupkanya and why was he already there? Zimbabwe reports indicate that prominent gold dealer and ZANU-PF politician Scott Sakupkanya was already on the ground in Russia ahead of the president's arrival. Now, if that is accurate, it raises questions that demand urgent answers. Sakupkanya is not just any businessman. He is one of Zimbabwe's most powerful gold traders, a man whose financial network intersects directly with the ruling party's political machine. If a private citizen with gold trade interests is traveling ahead of a president to the same destination on what appears to be a coordinated timeline, Zimbabweans have every right to ask, is the nation's gold being used as a private bargaining chip in backroom geopolitical negotiations that have never been disclosed to Parliament, to the public, or to any oversight board? So, under a functioning government with proper transparency, these questions would have official answers. Under the Mnangagwa administration, they are met with silence, or worse, with George Charamba refusing to take calls. Now, let us not be naive about the timing of this trip. Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 is sitting in Parliament right now. There is no way in the CAB 3 bill that explicitly states Mnangagwa will leave office in 2030. Meaning that if passed before September, the amended constitution could allow him to start a fresh 7-year term running all the way to 2033 and potentially beyond. Zimbabwe, listen to that again. Not 2030, 2033 and beyond. The goalposts are not just being moved, they are being dismantled entirely. Back home, the political landscape within ZANU-PF is fraught with internal power struggles. Vice President Constantino Chiwenga is widely regarded as the most formidable challenger to Mnangagwa's bid for an extended term. And any move to alter the constitution to favor the incumbent is likely to exacerbate those tensions. Zimbabwe, what does a leader do when his own vice president is a threat? When civil society is mobilizing, when the Catholic bishops have publicly condemned his bill, and when regional figures like Cyril Ramaphosa are showing up at his farm to privately warn him to pull back, he goes east. He shows up relationships with allies who ask no questions about democratic norms, who offer military cooperation in exchange for mineral concessions, and who have demonstrated, in Russia's case explicitly, a willingness to help African leaders entrench power in exchange for access to natural resources. At the St. Petersburg summit, Mnangagwa told Putin, "The United States is making us feel lonely." Russia responded by pledging to strengthen the combat capabilities of Zimbabwe's national armed forces and train military personnel. When your president is telling a foreign leader that America makes him feel lonely, while simultaneously trying to strip Zimbabweans of their direct vote and extend his own term to 2033, the pattern is not just concerning, it is a constitutional emergence. The army is watching, and so is the world, Zimbabwe. Retired Lieutenant General Winston Sigauke, in his statement to Zimbabweans, said what he found most disturbing was the absence of the traditional airport send-off usually attended by cabinet ministers, service chiefs, diplomats, and senior government officials, with the president's spokesperson dismissing the entire event as a routine handover of the presidency. When a retired general uses the word disturbing in a public statement about a sitting president's secret departure, he is not writing a letter for his own health. He is signaling to an audience that understands military language that the institutions of this country are watching, that the breach of protocol has been noted, and that the people who are supposed to safeguard Zimbabwe's constitutional order are paying very close attention. Right. Chiwenga's faction, muno Zimbabwe, the church, the legal community, the opposition, regional bodies, and now retired military voices, all of them are pulling in the same direction. And Mnangagwa, rather than addressing any of it head-on, boards a luxury jet in the middle of the night and flies to Moscow. That is not the behavior of a confident leader with a mandate. That is the behavior of a man who is buying insurance, political, financial, and potentially military, from allies who have no interest in Zimbabwe's democracy, only in Zimbabwe's minerals. Right, the bottom line, Zimbabwe, the pattern is now undeniable. The secret flights to the east are not accidents. They are not protocol lapses. They are a deliberate shadow diplomacy operation, one that bypasses parliament, bypasses transparency, bypasses the Zimbabwean people, and trades the nation's natural wealth for political survival insurance. Over $500,000 spent on one trip, mineral deals offered to sanctioned allies, nuclear cooperation, MOUs signed with Russia, gold traders arriving ahead of the president, military training agreements, and a constitutional amendment bill sitting in a parliament that could hand one man power until 2033. Zimbabwe is not being governed. Zimbabwe is being managed by a small network of insiders, in secret, in the dead of night, 10,000 kilometers from Harare. Pano pamzinda wevanhu, we will not let this go. We will be here every broadcast, naming names and following every paper trail. Stay tuned, subscribed. Pano pamzinda wevanhu, kubva kuvanhu, Zimbabwe's most fearless political voice. What do you think is being traded on these secret midnight flights? Is it uranium, military deals, political survival insurance? Drop your take in the comments. Smash the like button, share this video, and consider supporting independent journalism through the join or super thanks buttons. Zimbabwe needs voices that refuse to be silenced. Thank you for watching.